Hello, good morning. My name is Jochen. I'm the CEO of Wörwag Pharma, of which some of you may have heard and others may never have heard. So this is a great opportunity to, meet us, meet the company, and give me the chance for 20 minutes to talk a little bit about the digital journey. Why are we on a digital journey? Why are we all on a digital journey, right? But why are we going to talk about it here in the context of the new normal and next? Was it because the CEO had an epiphany and said, okay, we need to do something digital? No. Was it because the digital officer decided we have to do something in this field? Also not. By the way, we don't actually have a global or any kind of digital officer. It was basically because COVID came along and pushed us into a direction, like all of us, I'm pretty sure, and most of the industry, to get a little more clear on what opportunities we have in the digital space. And especially if you look at a medium-sized company, which is what we are, life looks very much like this on the right here. Like you're driving a truck through the, Taklamakan desert maybe, and this is your business, and you pick up stuff along the way, and they kind of attach it to your truck, and you keep going, and other stuff happens. Projects come along, regulations come along, ideas come along, a lot of them digital, and you keep packing it on there, and you keep going, and the road gets bumpy, and you kind of wonder if you make that next mountain. And this thing is going to break down at some point, and so you want to put some structure around this, and you want to figure out how can you actually get some sort of control in this, digital, movement that's happening. And we use the opportunity of the pandemic. Don't waste the crisis. So we tried not to waste that one. We used it to get a little more clear on how our digital journey is supposed to look. And maybe to put it in context, who are we? We are, as I said, a German medium-sized company. We're selling what we call biofactors, the fancy word for high-dose vitamin mineral supplements, mostly medical grade, RX, OTC, mostly not food supplements. We are in 35 markets through 22 subsidiaries globally, 280 million turnover, actually a little more than that. 1,200 employees. So really medium-sized company based out of one country with a global presence, a lot of complexity, not the resources that some of the much larger colleagues in the room have. So how do you actually manage the situation in this world? So we adopted a holistic approach to this whole digitization journey. We are decentralized with experts in the different areas. As I said, we do not have a global responsible person for the digital topic. There'll be a talk tomorrow by Davidek, I think, on the role of the digital officer. I'm very curious to hear what insights there will be. And we try to look at it in a certain framework, right? We try to look at our digital activities on, customer experience. I guess the pointer doesn't work this way. Customer experience, employee experience, business and systems processes, and the digital health. And the question that was earlier asked, how do you actually make sure you stop things that don't make sense? This is kind of the framework. If it doesn't pay into one of these circles, it's probably not something we should pursue. And even so, there are too many things on that truck that we can't probably carry with us. So this is the framework, and I'm just going to give you a few examples from some of these circles here. None of them are mind-boggling. I mean, a lot of you will say, oh, yeah, well, duh, that's what we're all doing. The point is really, how did it help us to get clearer as a smaller company on what we should do and what are kind of the learnings that we had. And, I'm very much looking forward to the speeches that are coming up to see how we can also maybe, fine-tune and improve some of these things that we've started to do. So the first thing we actually did during the pandemic is listening to our customers. Never a bad idea, and try to find out how would they like to communicate. So we did a study with 700 doctors in 4 countries, Germany, Bulgaria, Romania, and I think Hungary. And not surprisingly, We looked at different categories. They like to interact digitally. It's quite differentiated by country. You wouldn't be surprised by that. But generally, there is a very clear openness on digital interaction. So we figured out, okay, that's something we will continue. Up to 90% they want to use digital interaction. And the convenience of having digital, e-contact, whatever that in the specific case might be, has been rated also pretty high. So the first insight we had, okay, and we share this with our markets, involve your stakeholders, try to figure out how they want to be spoken to, and then once you know this, you can adapt your strategies and you can adapt the way you communicate, and you can actually then find the right tools to do that. And the right tools, we basically said, let's look at new formats, again, using the necessity of a global pandemic and the inability to talk to our doctors or pharmacists or other stakeholders led us to start playing around with different things. And there are probably better ways to do it. There are probably quite a few vendors here and providers who have better ideas or how to improve on these, so let's chat. But the one thing we started in Romania is we created this remote e-detailing platform because there was a particularly strong openness to be spoken to by HCPs during the pandemic, still looking at materials, but doing it in an interactive way. So it's the Phobos example that you see here, that you basically upload information, you speak to your HCP, and that has worked really, really well. And it has really, when you look at the different KPIs, you couldn't really see a drop in engagement and also a drop in prescription during this time, which was obviously one of the things we wanted to ensure that we could still be in touch with our HCPs. We tried podcasts during a launch of a new product in Poland. Sorry, that was KOL. The podcasts were in Czech. In Poland, we tried the podcasts for KOL engagement. So it's a novel way of putting relevant information into a channel that people are used to. And for us, it was new, and it kind of worked. And we also created a KOL kind of large launch event platform. That one was in Poland, too many countries. That really helped us getting a product into the market during a time when it was quite difficult to get into the pharmacies and actually convince doctors of prescribing a new vitamin solution. So the insight is we need to talk to our customers, and we have to use the opportunity, or whatever opportunity that is out there, and we have to do it in the way that they like. Interestingly enough, in Germany, the HCPs and pharmacists, they were kind of in between. They were like undecided between whether they prefer the digital communication, much less, in fact, than in the other markets. They're still okay with email. They're not so hot on the remote detailing, which is maybe not a surprise because we're still using the fax quite a lot in that country. So perhaps there is also a difference in different countries on the level of readiness to engage on these. And I think that the key message we're giving to our markets is really understand what works for your market and for your HCPs and for your pharmacists, and then find the tools that work there. There is no global one-size-fits-all solution, in my opinion here, because the markets are really in very, very different stages of development. And sometimes the ones you would expect to be further developed are actually not. The other one is, of course, on social media. No surprise that people during the pandemic spent even more time there. We also, but at the beginning it was like a little bit messy. I mean, we kind of had presence in different Facebook, Instagram, other social platforms, but we were lacking a global clarity or a global guideline, even what is okay to do and what is not okay. Once you get into social media with medicinal products, I mean, that can get tricky, of course. So we use the opportunity of not having much else to do and less travel to create a global social media playbook. We do, I said, we don't have a digital global, whatever manager, but we do have a person who coordinates a lot of this, and she was extremely helpful in creating, based on learnings and studies and research we did with the countries, a playbook on the do's and don'ts of social media, which we deploy to the markets, and have, as a result of this now, a much more standardized and safer and much more effective way of talking to end consumers. There are two examples, one from Georgia, one from Hungary. We measure these things in terms of posting activity, in terms of engagement levels of our followers, obviously also the follower numbers. Huge opportunity to grow more, but quite effective where it works. It really has an impact, a positive one on the business. So again, no rocket science for any of you, but the key message for us here was, this is a jungle. It's very kind of scary to get in there, and we wanted to give our markets and our local teams toolbox and a machete, basically, to get through that jungle and be safe and get out on the other side, and encourage them and empower them to really go in there. And that worked really well. Then there is e-commerce. No surprise. That's a huge part of our business in mostly Germany. But the key point is, it's coming also in the other markets. And we, again, had the tailwind of having time and having to focus on e-commerce, allowed us to really get much closer to our e-commerce partners, to really make a step change to the content that we have there, and the advertising and the AI-based targeting and the keyword and the search engine optimizations and the A+ content on Amazon and a whole bunch of other things that was kind of all out there, but it has come nicely together over those 2 years. And so in Germany, we are above fair share of e-commerce versus the market. I don't know if you know, it's usually around 26%, I think, of pharmacy business goes through the online pharmacies. In our case, it's over 30%. And therefore, it's super critical that you cooperate there, you actually create capacity on the key account front, and you make sure that you also invest the right amount of money. But the real important point for the markets was be there early, because you never know when you may need this channel. Because I'll hear a lot from the markets, well, e-commerce is really small, and it's linked usually to some pharmacy chain, and it's like 2% or 3%, and it doesn't make sense for us to engage there. I think we now got into a mindset of, let's engage early, let's use your relationships with the existing customers that you have, and let's build also an e-commerce presence or a e-pharmacy presence in the markets where it may be only 1 or 2% of the total market, because these things will be growing. And by connecting the markets, you do have learnings that you can then use to really improve the overall performance. So be ready for new channels. You never know when you need them, but you definitely will need them. And that was the key message we gave there. So we started to spend a lot of money and do a lot of activities and put in a lot of projects. And then the CFO said, well, this is a lot of money, is this going to work? As they do, CFOs, right? And I said, yeah, it's going to work, but you're right, we need to measure this. So we need to get a little more diligent, and we created a kind of a tool that allows us to measure the effectiveness based on certain classical digital KPIs and the return on investment of our different activities. We kind of follow the brand funnel from awareness, consideration to advocacy of our brands, and we measure the different activations that we do online, in social media, through whatever channels, in terms of click-through rates and other metrics that then tell us whether this is successful or not. And to the earlier question in the panel, this is a good way to stop stuff, right? This is, once you see it doesn't work and you have the data to support it, the debate is lesser and the decision is faster to move to something that actually does work. So especially during a crisis when money tends to be tighter, or at least the level of nervousness is going up, ooh, should we do this? Having such a tool actually makes it much easier to decide on what to do and what not to do. And we were happy to have it ready and ready to go to actually help us through this journey. And then we have seen this photo in a similar way before on the introduction, right? It is kind of the picture of the last, in my mind, of the last 2 years, this one here. Can you hear me? Can you see me now? These are new phrases that didn't exist before. We, by some luck, I must say, and coincidence, were just at the point of rolling out Office 365 and Teams globally, and then we accelerated this massively because we had to. It would have otherwise probably taken another 3 years and would have gone slowly, country by country. But in 2020, it was supposed to happen at the end. We really accelerated that project, and of course, nothing really mind-blowing here. But the opportunity it gave us to really be effective during this period in as I said, a small, medium-sized company in 35 markets with all our employees, and that means everybody in every country on the same platform, has been a huge enabler, not surprisingly, I'm sure, to allow us to work effectively together. And also the whole mindset and the whole structure of where we put data, how we work with information, how we co-create and collaborate on documents has completely changed. And we went through a massive training, and we trained 1,200, well, the sales force to a lesser extent, so it's probably really 300, 400 people that need this on a day-to-day basis. We trained them rigorously, and we're now in a completely different world on how we put data and where we put documents and how we collaborate and co-create. And it does offer us the opportunity also now to change the way we work. I don't know if I can say post-COVID or like in between COVID, whatever this is right now, but it does allow us to basically get our people to work 75% from wherever they want and 25% of their time from their respective offices, mostly in the headquarters. Countries sometimes have a different deal, but it was enabled through this. And it's not just the digital tools, it's also what you do with it in your flesh and blood world with the actual people, and use the opportunities to mix the way we interact. We creatively collaborate in our place of work, in our headquarters, but at the same time give that flexibility that everybody got used to. So it is this combination of using the digital journey, but not dogmatically as a technical tool, rather as a way to improve and empower the way you interact as human beings, be it colleagues or with HCPs or with other stakeholders. And bringing that all together, I think, is the real benefit here. So it kind of, in our view, it kind of looked a little bit like this, right? We were in kind of digitization like everybody else, that truck being loaded up with all kinds of ideas and projects. Then the virus hit, and we went, okay, let's be more focused, let's make sure the money goes in the right place, and let's make sure we can do those things that either improve customer experience or employee experience or processes or pay into digital health. The last one is still kind of an emerging topic, more strategic nature, but the other three, we really got the level of control over, and we accelerated this development. And now the question is, we talked about this in the intro as well, the digital transformation. What is next for us? Which of these tools that we have started to play with are we going to expand further? But it has been a huge push, and I think especially for a company such as ours, where there are too many things you can do, getting that focus from the pandemic, essentially, from the necessity of how we want to be successful and win in the market, getting that external push was hugely beneficial and helpful. And I'm glad we could harness this negative, fundamentally negative thing for something that eventually will be good for the company, but more importantly also be good for our customers and for our patients. And so it's a journey, but it has been an exciting one, and you can actually be fast in pharma. I didn't quite believe this if you have to. That comment was made earlier, and it worked for us. So basically, these were the key takeaways. And rather than having this old truck going down the desert road, I feel we're moving more into this kind of cockpit where we are going to start pulling all the information together. And looking forward, this looks like a much nicer perspective. Maybe there are still some of these bags in the back of the truck, but we'll sort them, we'll put them in their place, and we'll probably be comfortably cruising into whatever sunset this might be. Considering these things, involve your stakeholders, understand how they want to be spoken to, then actually speak to them in that way, whatever format is required. Empower your markets to be brave and get into new digital opportunities, in our case, the social media jungle. Be ready for new channels, leverage them, make them big early. Be diligent how you spend your money and what you do and don't do, and embrace the agility and the courage to drive change, not just with the tools, but in the way this actually affects the way your people work. So we take the driver's seat on this journey. And I have 9 seconds left for questions.